Good evening, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Efuru Cole Brewster. Um, and I'm going to give you her three important core values in her own words. How I make people feel, my determination and drive to be and to see the change in my lifetime, and my hope and care for humans and what we can accomplish together. Efuru, you have now 7 minutes to tell us the truth that you stand in on a daily basis as a student.
Hello. So I want to start at a very important part of my life, like a very pivotal part of my life. And that is when I was in 6th grade. I had got into Piedmont IV Middle School, so great. And then um in IB we have to have service hours. We have to have community service hours, right? And I remember my service hours had to do with Light the Night Walk, which is a walk for leukemia. I didn't have leukemia, but I did have Wilms tumor, which is a kidney cancer. And for my kidney cancer, I was stage 4. So I understood how the people walking on the streets and how fundraising for doctors for research, just it really makes the difference, and it really makes the impact, not only in the culture but in the research itself. And so for my community service, that's what I did. And I remember I had this white male science teacher, and he looked me in my eyes and he asked me, was I joking? He asked me, was I joking about having stage 4 cancer? Like, as if the words of resilience and this little Black girl going from 18 months to 11 years old couldn't dare make it to where she is now, being the color that she is in the country that she lives in. And, at the age, I didn't understand entirely that it has a lot to do with his perspective on me and people that look like me. But then later, I started to connect the dots because he set me and a good friend of mine down. We're both Black girls. And he set us down and he said, you will never amount to anything. Like, you will always be the friend of the smart person. And he had no other reason to say this to us but because we were who we are. And it is color, but it reaches beyond color because it talks about the cultural difference between a person in America that grows up with his skin tone and a person in America that grows up with my skin tone. He couldn't handle who we were as individuals, and he definitely couldn't grasp the fact that we act like we act and we perform the way that we perform. But that's a little bit of a insight into what happened later. I'm going to take y'all all the way back to when I first moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, in elementary school. So in elementary school, I went to a Montessori school. I was so privileged to go to this school because Montessori learning is very unique, and it has a beautiful way of teaching you principles and teaching you hard work with the expectations at such a young age. Like, it's gorgeous because it's just like it teaches you when you don't even understand that you're being taught. And so in elementary school, I got that kind of education. It was a well diverse elementary school. I can't say that I faced any racial injustices in that school. And then, like I said, I moved on to middle school, and to get a standpoint of how middle school kind of shook me. It was like first of all, I love the middle school that I went to. I really do. You can't deem a school for a few bad apples, but I understood that by the end of that 6th grade year, I remember coming home one day, standing in my living room, and I'm a very spiritual person. I'm lighting the incense for the ancestors. And something just came over me and I just started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I cried because with everything that I had been through, inside and out, I understood that surviving what I had to survive, not only as a stage 4 cancer, but in the situation that I was in, as far as being low income. My mom had 2 girls, was pregnant with my younger sister, and she was by herself making less than 30,000 a year with 4 kids. And it's just like, yo, I made it. I stopped to myself and I said, this is not by accident. It's no reason that there's not a reason, double negative, that I'm still here. And I have a purpose. I have a mission on this earth. And you know what? From this point on, I'm going to make sure I get there, no matter what it takes out of me, or no matter what I need to give, because ultimately, when I give to the universe, it returns. And throughout middle school, that was my attitude as an IB student. And I remember all of these teachers, and all of my teachers were white, besides maybe a few, but they would teach you to be motivated in you. They taught me how to keep myself to a high standard, to make sure that I'm pushing forward, and to make sure that I knew and I truly understood the material that I was being taught, so that not only I can retain it and remember it, but I can move forward with it and teach it to somebody else. And then boom, middle school is over. Middle school is only for 3 years. I'm in 8th grade. 8th grade comes, and I'm like, oh my God, what high school am I gonna go to? Because Piedmont doesn't like feed into another high school, right? So, I have all of these options. But then my 8th grade year, or actually my 7th grade year, I didn't take into account that I had moved from the north side to the west side of Charlotte. And at this point, I had never heard of the West Side. I didn't know what the West Side was. I didn't know what it took. But when I got there and 8th grade came and I'm choosing my high school, it got to a point where everybody's like, don't go to Harding. Don't go to Harding. Don't go to Harding. You're going to be fighting every day. It's like a war. Oh my God. It's like gangster city over there. Like, you're going to have to spray paint. It was it was so hyped up to be such a bad high school. And I was scared. I was shaking in my boots. I didn't want to go to this juvenile delinquent school where I would probably have to fight people. I've never had to fight before. I don't want to fight now. I'm not a fighter like that. And it's just, I was so afraid. But, when God has something for you, it's meant for you. And it took me 10 days to go to that school after the school year started, but I went. And I remember walking in my classroom, sitting down with the most stankiest look, like, oh my God, I have to have my stank look on so these girls don't try me. And when I got there, all I heard was laughter. All I seen was smiles. And I walk into this room being educated by another Black woman that cared. Oh my gosh, it was powerful. It was uplifting to see someone who looks like me teach me about Mansa Musa. It wasn't what I expected. And it shifted. This is the second biggest pivot that has happened in my life. It shifted the way that I viewed Black people in America. Being at Piedmont, it was like being in a bubble of delusion. Me believing, just because I see other Black people where I am, that, hey, this is how majority of Black people are in the education system. This is not true. When I got to Harding, a Title I school, I start to understand that Black people are still at the bottom of the totem pole, that the children are not cared for, and that we are not heard, and we are not held to the same standards as these white students. So when I got to Harding, I remember my teacher, he was a white male teacher, but he was old. And I remember if I didn't turn in one assignment, he would be like, he would make like indirect shots to the not only the Black women, but the women. Okay, the women in the classroom. He would say, I don't know, you girls, You girls might not make it to next year. You guys might not be fit for this program. It might be too much for you. It's too rigorous. It's this, that, and the third. And it's just like, it's enough for me to clench my jaw, raise my chin, and keep going forward, because no matter what he says or she says to me, I have this thing that I have been taught throughout my life, that nothing can stop me. Nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop me. And nothing in a sense of, I want to bring us all together. And if I want to bring us all together, we will all come together. And it's not because I want it, not because Efuru wanted it, because God intended it to be. The universe intended it to be. The collective wants to be together. But it's the way that we unlearn what we already know to relearn what we are true to, which is love and caring for each other, that I want to lead us down. Or not I don't know, no, not I, but that I want us to lead to. And being at Harding, it's just, it's a lot. And I'm going to touch on a few specific points on the things that are crazy and and that are still being in place at Harding University, at a almost full minority high school. We only have maybe 1 or 2% white people. So it's 45% Hispanic, and then the other 50, y'all, math is not my subject, but the other percentage Black. And so we're all Black and brown students. This is a brown thing. It's not necessarily a Black thing only. It extends very closely to a whole brown thing. And I want to touch on the fact that my school still has permanent metal bars on our windows. I've never seen another university, not university, another high school in Charlotte and CMS system have bars on their windows. Not only is that a safety hazard, but that is mental conditioning. Not even to talk about the prison, the school to prison pipeline. And I would like to also say that as a student performing at the levels that I perform, I came into this school as a juvenile delinquent. And not because I did anything bad, but because the staff had already had this pre-notion that everyone who walks down these halls are um, snappy, uneducated, unmotivated, and everything else. And I remember I was wearing this shawl with this tank top I had. And obviously, I didn't intend to take it off. I don't want to feel bare in class, and it's cold in class anyway. And this woman snatches me up, and she's like, "Oh, you can't wear this." And she literally pulls back my shawl like, "This is not three fingers." And I'm like, "My shawl is my outfit. Don't ever do that again." And it kind of got a ball of anger within me. And it angered me because she treated me as if I had offended her before. It was like a triggering thing where she wanted a reaction out of me. And though I was about to give her a reaction, it was not in my it was not in the plan for me to give her a reaction. Because right after she did that, a teacher that knew me well came up and snatched me up and was like, "Come on, girl." And we handled what we had to handle together. And I just say all this to say that I have experienced a lot of racial injustice in the CMS system. But I will say this, it it starts outside of the system, and it bleeds over into the system. And I just want to say that my teachers are Black and my administration is Black, but it's not their skin tone, it's the system that I'm fighting. It's not them, it's not the individuals, it's the system that I'm fighting. To even have to drop out the IB program once I got to 12th grade, because it's not being weighed the same as it would be at RGKL. It was harder for me to be successful in the system. So like I said, it's not the individuals, it was the system that was really my hardest part of high school and CMS.
Efuru, I can only say thank you for your gut wrenching truth. Thank you. and being brave. And I really only have one question for you. In order to restore hope to you and to your fellow students and sister students at Harding University, what three academic policies or practices do you think need to stop right now? And then what new behaviors does that system that you're in that has metal bars on the window have to start doing? Nothing changes until something stops.
Mhm.
And then something new has to take its place. So could you share with our audience three things that need to stop right now, tomorrow, and three things that need to start? And be mindful of our time.
Yes.
Okay.
So three things. Well, number one is the conditions of our classrooms. I understand that, like I said, the metal bars on the windows, and then the materials that we have in class. These are hand-me-down practices. These need to go. These students need to feel. And to get into what I'm about to say, I want to say another one, which is our school has heavy security and nothing really happens. I just want to put that in there. Anything really happens, but we have heavy security, and that needs to go to implement something more face to face, more personal with these students. It doesn't have to be in person because I know the pandemic and all, but if the students feel heard and if they feel seen, you'll start to understand more why these students are the way that they are, and the teachers and the staff and the administration can have more empathy or sympathy, because not everyone can feel empathy as easily, but to have sympathy for these kids and where they are in their lives, and to help them where they are and not bash them for where they are, to help them where they are, to get them to where they need to be. Everything with my school, and the last thing I want to touch on, and this is what I'm leading into, is everything with my school is low expectation. And I need, and this is why I say I, because this is from my personal experience coming from an IB middle school. Expectation needs to be high because the students will perform to what they're expected to perform by. And to end this off, that is how I want to end it. These students will do what you expect them to do, regardless of what you think might happen. They will, because I've seen it done before.